This is the conservative pre-Rush Limbaugh talk show hosted by Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor.
Rush won't be here today.
I know. That's what I said. We're pre, but isn't he pre-recording?
No.
He might have a guest host.
He's going to the big cancer doctors today to determine what he needs to do now.
Well, he wasn't looking too good last night.
He was looking great last night when the president gave him an award.
Well, hey, when you've got Melania hanging on the back of you, that doesn't hurt either.
Well, I mean, I thought something was fishy. I noticed when he was sitting with Melania, and I thought, how's he get to sit with her?
Yeah, I do whatever. Listen, I'm willing to sit next to her. I do a talk show.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Even Alan, you'd go in and sit next to her, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
I don't think we have a disclaimer here to cover our rear ends. But back in 2004, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, Greg Fasula, attorney, said, let's get together and talk on the radio and answer questions for people that each one of us had a different area of expertise. And Greg Fasula, attorney, who is not here today, said, how long do you think we'll have to do these shows?
He's recovering from last night.
He's recovering. Greg considers himself a moderate. Now, we don't really call him a moderate, but we let him claim that title. But he's a very strong Obama supporter, and I think there was a few Obama supporters there last night. Did you see them?
I didn't see any.
The ones all dressed in white?
The ones that were sitting there
I
quietly?
hung a towel over that side of my TV.
Anyway, we started doing the shows.
Why did they dress in white?
Huh?
Why did they dress in white? Does anybody know?
Do you know why they dressed in white, Alan?
I believe it had something to do with women's suffrage.
I thought it was because they were snowflakes.
Well, we do have somebody else from Wisconsin here today.
Are we changing the subject?
Yes, we are. I'd
Wait
like
a minute.
to. I'd like to introduce my guest, my former dentist from Wisconsin, Dr. Tom Bittner, who's joining us today. He's down here for a dental conference, golf, and then Tom and his wife and my friend Nancy and I are going to be departing on a 3-week cruise of the Caribbean.
Not to China, right?
No. As a matter of fact,
slow boat.
As a matter of fact, Holland America, before they'll let you on the ship, they are actually taking everybo's temperature.
Well, guess what?
Orally.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
Thank goodness.
Well, they could do it in the ear too, you know.
That's right.
With dentists, don't they make you carry your medical bag on there because you are a doctor, you know?
Well, that's true, and I brought mine along just in case.
Now, listen.
Pliers and a screwdriver.
Let me ask you a question. How are your teeth, Dan? We got them here now.
My teeth are good.
Mine are in trouble.
Hey,
Can you take and I need to put in.
My wife's a dental hygienist, so she always makes sure my teeth are in good shape.
I did not bring my hammer and chisel with me, so I'm sorry I can't
You know,
help
it's
you.
funny you should say that. I had a tooth taken out, and literally, bam, 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 with a hammer and chisel, and he got the tooth out. But he didn't tell me until after he was beating me that he was beating me.
That's the Flintstone method, right?
Yeah, it worked, and it worked. It worked.
Didn't have a drill to kind of cut it out of there?
Well, I don't know what he did, but I didn't ask questions. At that point, it was too late.
It's amazing how pain-free dentistry is today.
Well, and I go in and the dentist will say, do you want Novocaine? I said, should I have it or not? And he says, well, if it was me, I would do it. And I says, yeah, but you're wimpy.
But it's not anxiety-free.
Not anxiety, no. 340-1590, 340-1590. We also, Alan Love introduced, he's our special guest member, retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin. He introduced the almost retired dentist who still works occasionally to take cruises.
I earned every moment on it.
That's right. Now, could you be the dentist on the cruise for a free
I
cruise?
could. My specialty is pediatrics. I'm a pediatric dentist.
You're not going on a pediatric cruise.
No, I'm not. But you'd be surprised how many adults that really act like children when you get them in the chair.
Oh, I know I do. I'm a white knuckle guy in the dental chair.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, you watched it last night. We all four of us. You watched the whole thing too, didn't you, Cliff?
Of course I did.
So, I mean, I was just so impressed. I mean, this man, first an hour and a half. Now, do they have a teleprompter?
Yes.
Because how could you do that without a teleprompter? But he never stumbled for an hour and a half. Never. One. Two, The white cloud over there, which is all of the Dems that hate him the worst, the females and the Democrats in the Congress. Are they senators or are they congressmen, Alan, or do you know, are they both?
They were both.
Both, okay. Anyway, and then Nancy, I learned to love Nancy because when the thing was over last night and she tore up the speech, I thought, Nancy, all the Dixiecrats now are going to leave you for sure because you disrespected, and that piece of paper, those pieces of paper are almost sacred, every one of these speeches. Now, of course, the originals are being kept in an archive, but I thought, nothing like being stupid.
She could have got more money though for those papers than she could have for her pens.
Yeah,
That's right.
How can
She
you
tore it
pack
up.
so much stupid in the one head?
You know, well, it was a very, 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 very good speech, and just I tell you, it made you very proud, didn't it, Dan?
Well, here's the thing, Joe. He accomplished many of the things that he was elected to accomplish.
Right.
You
In
know,
spite of what was going on.
in spite of what was going on.
Yeah. Well, today's the hearing, you know, and he didn't say one word about the impeachment, not one word about today's vote, which is anti.
But he can say plenty about it today,
He will.
and he should.
I'm sure he'll be tweeting like crazy when
yeah.
this is.
And
all
that's a good sign because probably the Donald of 2 to 3 years ago would not have not done that. He would have probably, given you a precursor of what's going to happen today. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, what was it? I heard one of the senators that I forget which one it was, basically said his working on the job has taught him, and she was being very, very, very careful how she phrased it, but basically saying, don't be as stupid as you started off. Just keep accomplishing things. You don't need to open your mouth all the time and cause problems. Be cool and just keep accomplishing stuff. And listen, that's all we care about. Dan, you,
Absolutely.
me, Alan. I'm a big, the end justifies the means as long as you don't kill him.
I did not hire him to be my moral compass.
No kidding. And you won.
Absolutely. I did win.
I think he's refined himself so well in these 4 years
Yeah.
that he's acting more and more quote unquote presidential.
Well, last night he was extremely presidential, and it was very impressive, very impressive. And I think you're right. I think these next 4 years, he's going to be more and more presidential. I think he can't stand not tweeting because he gets excited. And I think the man never sleeps.
He's got tremendous stamina and energy.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm impressed with what he can get done. As you said, despite all that's gone around him.
People trying to stumble him, trip him, break his legs, do everything in the world to keep him from accomplishing things. But boy, I'll tell you, I'm sure glad I'm not a Democrat today because it'd be tough. It'd be tough after all his accomplishments to come up and say, well, yeah, that was because of Obama or that was because of Ted Kennedy or I don't care who you want to try to give credit to. The man pulled it off. And
who's ever in the office, and we've discussed this, who's ever in the office at the time, they get the credit and they get the blame.
That's right. That's
So you can't say, hey, I'm drafting Obama on this plan, so he,
Yeah.
no, that was Donald's plan. He's the one who got it done.
Yeah.
It might have started, the economy might have been starting to get a wee bit better, but that's not the point. The point is he is now the one taking the credit as he should.
On the point. 340-1590, 340-1590. And I thought he did just, some of it was theatrics, which I really appreciate. Bringing in the wife with the kids and bringing in the servicemen and being a surprise, and she looked genuinely surprised, which was a good thing.
But do we not
She
always
looks
expect that?
surprised.
Yeah.
It's just like the kid looks surprised too.
Like, who's that?
Mommy, who's
Uncle
this?
Bill's at the house.
Who's this other
what's
man?
going on here?
What's the old joke? It's not bad when you come home and a dog bites you, and it's not bad when you come home and the kids say, "Mommy, who's that man?" But it's really bad when you come home and the kids say, "Mommy, who's that other man?"
Whoa.
That's the big one. 340-1590. Ouch, exactly. 340-1590. Yeah, and credit for the servicemen. And credit for this guy from the Second World War. I mean, Donald Trump, if he's not the greatest American we have running the presidency for a long time, I don't know who is.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Reagan was the first one who brought people into the gallery to introduce, but now it's almost expected.
Yeah.
Almost every State of the Union, they bring out some people like that. And I get a little emotional over it, but I'm not quite sure if it's too much theatrics for me or not.
Well, to me, it's once a year, or and a little bit of theatrics. Here, look it. I'm patting myself on the back without patting myself on the back. And he did say, thank you, Dan, because I can't reach back that far. Anyway, he did say we a lot rather than me.
Yes, I noticed that.
And that was very impressive because, when he started off, it was all me, and he's now, and he did give credit to big time. He said, because of the people in this audience out here, things have happened, which was a good thing, giving credit to the Congress.
I had no problem with him showing these people, and the reason why is he's showing some of the best that America has to offer. And
Yep.
if we could just emulate the people that he was showing, this country would be so much better.
Well, though, you can't do that because a lot of them are attorneys, and you can't emulate attorneys.
Yes, you can.
You can emulate dentists and financial
Now,
advisors.
what have you said about Greg all these years about that you'd love to have him as your neighbor?
You know what it is, and this is, I think all of us will have to say this, even though we're somewhat conservative here today. Anybody I know that is a liberal, and I do know a few, they as long as we don't talk politics, they're nice people.
If they're patriots, that's the primary thing I look for. Do they love the country? If they think that their political view is better for the country, that's their position, and I respect that. It doesn't mean that I have to cow down to it. It just means I respect it.
So the big thing this morning is they fully now expect Bernie to get the nomination because Elizabeth Warren will drop out and donate all of her delegates to Bernie as this thing progresses.
Is she dropping out?
Well, they think the way
I thought Biden was dropping out.
Well, Biden should drop out.
I thought the DNC hadn't decided who they're going to drop out or keep yet.
They're still counting votes.
They're still counting, right?
You know why they're still counting?
Because they don't like the count.
You remember the first reports that were coming out? They were saying that Bernie's coming out ahead of everybody, and then all of a sudden it was all zeros.
Yeah, and Pete's cranking, right?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I kind of like Pete. First of all, he is a moderate. Secondly, he's not jumping up and down on this whole liberal thing. However, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, if you got rid of one of them, lump their votes together, that's 40%, or it's a big number.
Why don't they take the top two vote getters and make that their ticket? I always thought that was a better idea than he got one winner and then he picks somebody out of a hat that nobody ever heard of, and it makes it kind of tough. I'd much rather have the top two vote getters be the party ticket.
340-1590.
You'd think they'd have somebody on the sidelines waiting for this opportunity.
Yeah, they do. It's
like
called Hillary.
Bloomberg or something.
Or like Bloomberg and something.
Yeah.
Well, he's sure spending the money.
Well, yeah, but where's the personality? There's
Oh, he's got terrible
You don't have to have personality when you hire a billionaire.
I don't know. You got to have some personality because you're talking about Obama had personality and.
But he
Trump's
wasn't a
got
he wasn't a
personality.
billionaire.
He
was a
you have
community
to-
organizer.
A billionaire is like
Yeah, when you're a billionaire, you don't need to have anything because you got money.
Oh.
When you don't have money, you better be cool.
Oh, okay.
Have
You got to be in compliance.
being compared. No, you don't have to be compliant. You have to be charismatic. Something this room is
He's
missing.
just buying his way on. I mean,
If,
he
uh,
didn't
if
even
our-
try earlier.
If our audience would like to share with us their opinions, we'd love to hear from you. 340-1590.
340-1590. That's not a toll-free number from any place.
Unless you're on a cell phone, then it's a toll-free number from anywhere.
Yeah, but then you have to dial 772 if you're long distance.
Well, the
However,
one means United States. 1772 means United States 772 area code, and then the number.
340-1590. Here we go. All right, guess what? I think we might actually have a caller. I hope it's our faithful, loyal,
The only one we
our
have.
only one that listens. I have had Joe's friend Robert. Hey, listen, Robert, you're taking a license there being a friend of mine,
Hey, that's right. It takes work constantly.
I know. I have heard this from other people before. Can you imagine that?
So just to strike it up, I wanted to say that when Trump was running for office and he kept saying he wanted to drain the swamp, I had no clue. I was like all for it, whoever the swamp is. And then come to find out within a year's time, we know exactly who it is before even now. And it's the whole entire Democratic Party.
I would think after last night, I feel sorry for anybody being a Democrat after last night. I mean, that's a tough one.
Tough act to follow.
Hey, listen, I want you to call Mike Gagnon and tell him to get on the radio here so we can pick on him.
Okay. Oh, yeah, my God. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Well, he's a flaming liberal, so we don't. Hey, wait a minute. You could call Kathy up and say, you're not,
Right.
we could lump them together.
Right. Anyway, Trump, he exposed the Democratic Party for what they were and continues to do so. And to me, they're just like a bunch of children, in my opinion. And they're not getting their way, and Trump's taking their tricycle away from them.
Well, that's a good analogy. I kind of like that, And,
Yep.
yeah, but
And the other part of it is everybody's worried about, I hope everybody's getting the message here, even on the Democratic side. And my quote is, Democratic voters have 401ks too,
there you go. I'm glad.
I don't know anybody to give up your money just because you hate someone.
Well,
So why
yeah,
would they
well-
take that chance?
Well, who was the talk show host that wanted a recession so that we could get a Democrat elected, right?
Bill Maher.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
well,
I
who
mean,
was?
I have my
Bill
theories,
Maher.
but
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you I can't see myself ever after Kavanaugh and the whole thing, and then Russia and then Ukraine. I never see myself voting for another Democrat as long as I live.
It'd be tough. Well, luckily you're not going to live too long because some of the Democrats would be upset about that.
I hope Hillary's not listening.
Yeah, right. All right, my man. Listen, thank you for calling in.
All right, roger that.
Bye.
But now, Joe, I have voted for Democrats in the past.
Yeah,
And these are Democrats that I know personally,
I understand. Locally. Yeah.
So, I would say the most important thing for the voter is to be aware of these different personalities.
Well,
Get
yeah.
out there and participate. Sometimes people get caught up in as being Democrats because their grandparents and their parents were, and they just went right to the party and signed up as a Democrat. And the Democratic Party of the South used to have a lot of what we used to call Dixiecrats.
Right.
And those just don't exist hardly
No.
anymore, but they're still out there. So vote for the person.
Let me ask you a question. What's your personal opinion of Maggie Herchala?
Well, I think that Maggie was good for Martin County. As far as what the Martin County people wanted, she was tough in her positions.
See, and I respect Maggie to no end, and she's a Democrat. She's one of the
Absolutely.
very few in Martin County, because Martin County, I mean, you have to have a green card to be a Democrat to even get in the county. I mean, it's so conservative. But Maggie stood firmly for her beliefs until the day she dies, she will. And I bumped into her at a fruit stand some years ago, and I said, Maggie, why aren't you still running? She goes, Joe, I can't afford to keep losing like this. These people pick on me too much.
If you let's put it this way: if you lived in a conservative area and
Right.
you were extremely liberal,
Right?
you can either try to convince the whole county that they're wrong,
Right?
or you might want to consider moving to a county where you're right.
And she didn't. But her concept was pretty much environmental. What's good for Martin County?
I mean, if I loved weed, I would move out west because that's where they want all the weed people who want to smoke. It's legal. So it's like if you want to live in a very conservative life, you should live in a conservative state. That's why we have state rights. States can do.
That's why we have red states and blue states.
Well, there you go.
340-1590, 340-1590. And we got another caller. Russ, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio. Hey,
I don't get to watch television, so basically the only way I get entertained is by renting DVDs. Now, does anybody argue the fact that 99.9% of all TV shows and movies are written by Democrat, liberal, leaning arts?
I think you might be right on that one. I think you might be
Well,
right.
there's one underlying theme that runs through every single story on every format, whatever, and it's rules only apply to everyone else.
Yeah,
Doesn't
Russ.
apply to the superhero or any. Everyone else has to follow the rules except for basically the Democrats.
See, and you don't have a computer either, Russ?
Well, I have computers, but I'm not online at all.
See, because you could have
My
watched
news
the thing
comes
on there.
from you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. I'm sorry you missed that speech because it was superb last night. It was just superb. And as my buddy Robert that called in, you know, it's this being a Democrat after yesterday is tough, real tough. And Nancy tried her best, you know, to look on.
Now, see, I'm going to play devil's advocate. If I was a Democrat, I would use last night to invigorate me to get off some of these stupid bulletin points that they keep trying to convince us is right and swing back toward being a little bit more moderate, and perhaps the American people might get along with my program. What they are doing now is they're self-destructing.
See, Wes, where the kid Buttigieg, whatever, is he's a bit of a moderate, and he's coming up pretty strong.
Despite all of the things that many people might hold against him,
Yeah.
he is still commanding the lead, and that should be noticed by those people that are extremely liberal who want to give everything
But
away.
look at Uncle Joe, though. They pumped him right out.
Uncle Joe's about where I thought he'd be from the day Uncle Joe got into race.
There you go. Hey, Russ, thank you for bringing in 4
Yep.
cents worth. I appreciate it, my man. Thanks for listening.
Yep.
340-1590, 340-1590. Yeah, it was the 401k thing, and I just get such a kick out of that. You know, last year the S&P 500 was up almost 30%. The NASDAQ 100 was up 37%. So when I look at my clients and their 401ks and their retirement accounts, and they made 30% and 35% last year, and this year the market's taken off again, and Alan, you and I, and Dan especially, and the whole concept of the market, it trades in advance of what they expect to happen.
Well, money is not evil, Joe. It's the love of money that's evil. I've always viewed money as a tool which helps me do good things.
There you go. There you go. Anyway, it's to live better. I can't see a problem with somebody. You know, Alan, take a piece of that ear off. Take one ear off and give it to, because he can't hear all the good stuff that's going on. Now we can. 340-1590, 340-1590. Mike, Joe Martek, you're on the radio.
Hi, I first want to comment on the power of radio. I never knew Bulldog, but thanks to your great show, I felt like I knew him and lost a friend.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And you did lose a friend.
Yeah, yeah. Bulldog was a special person. Not that you aren't, Mike, or that I'm not, or anybody else, but Bulldog was a very transparent guy. Veteran.
I was good friends with Gary Stewart, our great musician from Fort Pierce, and one time when I had lunch with his family, his mother said, "Everybody's somebody."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never forgot that.
Yeah, great line, great line, great line. So did you watch it last night?
Of course.
Of course.
I could never have been more proud. It reminded me a little bit of a rally, and that's what I'm calling about. The one the Democrats have that can draw thousands and fill a stadium and really bring the energy is Sanders. The rest of them, I don't feel it. I know he's completely out there in the left end, but he does bring crowds that can kind of rival the president.
However, and I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. But if you ever look when they show pictures of his crowd, you don't see anybody over 20. I'm kidding a bit, you know, but they're young. And you know the old saying was, when you're young, if you're not a liberal, means you don't have a heart, and when you're old, if you're not a conservative, you don't have a mind. Well, after you've had a few sticks in the eye over the years, you realize that helping people doesn't always pay off. And Bernie's whole concept is socialism.
But, Joe, don't you think that the socialism aspect of his rallies will take a turn when people realize that that's a communist they're listening to?
Yeah. Well, that's where it's going. You know, don't you agree, Mike?
Completely. My question for all of you who are, in my book, great radio personalities, I'd like to know who any of you think can take Rush Limbaugh's place when he goes this summer.
Well, Sean Hannity is number 2 in the ratings. Now, if he could sit for 3 hours and do a show every day, but what people I think don't know about Rush, he has a staff behind him that's enormous that does research like crazy, because to stay alive and awake for 3 hours a day to me is a miracle.
I've always believed that he played a great role in me becoming more of a conservative than the liberal that I always was, and part of a family that will always be liberal. My family still doesn't know that I'm a Trump man.
Otherwise, they'd never invite you to dinner. I understand that.
No
That's
Thanksgiving
right.
for you.
No Thanksgiving.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one in a family like that.
Cold turkey.
Cold
That was good.
Mike, I may be a little bit of a homie here, but if there was needed to be a replacement for Rush, and of course we're all praying that that doesn't need to happen, but the talk show host from Milwaukee that basically helped Scott Walker tremendously when he ran for governor in Wisconsin, Mark Belling, who sometimes substitutes on Rush's show. Mark is just a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. He is an American patriot, and he's eloquent, and he is able to explain things to the audience sometimes even a little better than Rush, because he doesn't use some of the flamboyant words that Rush sometimes uses.
It's an interesting thing. Now, who's going to pick up right now? Do you know who's going to pick
Mark
him?
Stein is
Stein.
doing it
Right
at the
now.
moment.
Mark
yeah.
does a good job.
Oh yeah, I like Mark Stein, absolutely.
Do you view it sort of like going from Jack Parr to Johnny Carson to Jay Leno? I mean, you never know who's gonna walk in, and will they keep that same fan base?
Yeah, right.
Or will they lose some, or will they pick up some new ones? I mean, you just
The
don't
personalities, right?
Well,
the
let's
same
not
skill.
write
There's
Rush.
people
Let's
like
not.
Johnny Carson that are just one of a kind that nobody ever came and could fill those shoes.
And it may end up being Rush a one of a kind, because nobody ever has done what Rush has done in the history of radio. So anyway, that's just a.
Not even Paul Harvey.
Well, Paul Harvey couldn't talk for 3 hours.
No.
Stand by for news.
Stand by. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Very good.
Hey, Mike, that was actually
That's
a
the rest
good,
of the story.
That was a good imitation too. I liked it.
I'm into voices.
Hey, you did well. You did well. It sounded like a young Paul Harvey too.
That's a compliment.
All right, my man. Listen, thank you for calling in, and thanks for listening.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
Take care, Mike.
340-1590, 340-1590. We're a little bit political today. I want to give a tiny bit of a warning. I've had a couple of solicitations, and I've had a couple of phone calls in the last week. I actually got solicited on my cell phone. Can you? No, and she was good looking, Dan. Thank you. I know you were setting me. I saw the evil grin on his face.
Like, where are you going with this?
Where are you going? But it was people trying to sell a fixed index annuity. Fixed index annuity, which I have talked to, and I had to teach this old attorney what that meant, because they're coming up with all these grandiose numbers where you can make all kinds of money and you can never lose and never go down kind of stuff. And
I've heard that.
Yeah, and they're showing 30%. They're saying 30% gains. They're not saying 30% over the rest of your life. They're just saying 30%. Just be careful.
Do they tell you how to get the money out?
Nope, they don't tell you anything except you're going to get rich instantly, and trust me.
That's when the bells and whistles should go off.
That's when the bells and whistles should go off. Then I had another one, and this happens regularly. Joe, I got a thing in the mail that says my annuity's coming due. What do I do? And I said, who'd you get it from? He says, I don't know. Let me look and see. It's from Annuity Center. And I said, guess what? It's not me. It's a solicitation for somebody trying to get in your house and thinking that you're not too bright, and they can talk you out of what they've got and give you something else.
Talk you out of your money.
You got to be careful with these things. If I see a solicitation that comes on the computer, on my cell phone, anything except in the mail, it's like Social Security. There's scams going on every day. There's no such thing as Social Security or your bank doing anything on the phone. You've got to be very, very careful. Very careful. And right now, this seems to be the season that they're going to be nailing.
You mean that African prince was lying?
You kidding? He's not from Nigeria, was he?
I think so.
340-1590, 340-1590. Mark, Joe Martek, you're on the radio.
How you doing, Joe?
Hey, I'm doing well, my man. Thanks for calling.
You know, it's amazing. Trump took an hour and a half last night, and he couldn't finish all of his accomplishments.
I know. It was magnificent.
You know, he had more that he could have said about the accomplishments that he's made, but the things he's done for the African American communities and the poor in this country is unmatched.
And that's exactly, and let me tell you, you and I both know, as this election process gets closer, and they're showing, and I don't know statistics, but I've listened and read some stuff, that more and more African Americans are moving over to a conservative attitude because it's finally working for the benefit of the group. And in the staging last night, you got to give him some credit. He did stage a couple of African Americans up there and stood them up in front of people that have made the move successfully, including a senator. So it was very, very, hey, the man is more than impressive, and what he's accomplishing is even more impressive than the man.
Well, Joe, if you remember what Donald Trump said was, what have you got to lose?
Yeah, but after all these years.
After all these years, what have you got to lose? Why don't you give me a shot?
That's it.
And now he can come back with a totally different verbiage by saying, hey, don't lose what I got you.
That's it. Amen. You know, listen, the guy was forever and ever a Democrat, and he might have been as close to a Dixiecrat as ever. But now he's moved over to the conservative side, but he still has a heart, which most Democrats don't see, in trying to help people that are underprivileged.
What you want from a politician, Joe, is a patriot. I don't care if it's a D or an R. If you're a patriot and love your country, we'll get along fine.
There you go.
You know, Joe, I don't know why you're surprised that Trump staged so well last night. Remember, he was in TV for 10 years.
Yeah,
that's right. That's very true.
He knows how to put on a show, and he had it just lined up perfectly. He had the heartstrings of everybody, especially with that soldier that he had coming back to his wife there in the audience.
Slick, that was slick.
I mean, that just spoke up everybody. I even saw some Democrats crying about that.
Yeah, and imagine that. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful stage. You know what it is? Who said it here earlier today? It was like a rally, his rallies. Only this was staged perfectly. I mean, there wasn't a bump in the whole hour and a half. It was just perfect.
Well, the only soft spot was all those people in white over there that were sitting on their hands for most of the positive things that have happened in this country over the last 3 years.
So I'm going to ask you, like I ask everybody else, what does the white represent?
It's not purity.
Do you know? I don't know.
Death.
It must mean something.
It's the Ku Klux Klan. You remember?
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
So they were representing the Ku Klux Klan last night by being in white. The only thing that was different is they didn't wear their bed
They didn't
sheets.
wear the hood.
They didn't wear their beanies, right? They had the pointy heads. Hey, listen, my man. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for being part of the tribe.
Not a problem. You guys have a good day.
Thanks. Bye. 340-1590, 340-1590.
Well, I Googled it, and I've got your answer. Those were people that were going to a wedding, but they got put in the wrong spot. They made a wrong turn, and so hopefully that's straightened out. No, seriously, this country is the most magnificent land we have on this planet, and if the American people want to give up what God has given us, and God has ordained us to make this country great and give people economic, intellectual freedom, then November is the time that the decision is going to be made. And we are praying as conservatives that people join us in making America what it is and what it can be in the future, and that is great.
Well, you know, here's the other thing. I have heard so many people tell me Trump's going to walk away with this with a landslide, and I do believe that, but do not become complacent and say, hey, he's winning by a landslide. That means I can sleep in and not go. I don't need to vote. Somebody else will take care of it. Do not become complacent.
Absolutely.
If you want to make it so, make it a self-fulfilling prophecy and get out there and vote.
Well, I just know this, and you know it, all of us know it. These last 3 years have gotten nothing but better and better and better economically. And it was James Cargill, I love Cargill rather than Carville, that said it, that, hey, it's the economy, stupid. When people are working and making a living, they've got good jobs, they've got extra money to spend. Isn't that the way you can tell how, and people are smiling on the street, the restaurants are full. When you see a guy with a 45-foot open fisherman with 5 outboard motors on the back of it because he can afford it.
But it's not just the economy, Joe. If that was the case, if the only thing that he brought to the table was the economy, he would have had only one thing he could have mentioned last night.
Right.
But he mentioned thing after thing after thing that he's accomplished that have nothing to do with a good economy, but it has to do with being an excellent leader to get things done that our so-called leaders have been promising us for decades, that if you just vote me in one more time, I will get it done. Well, he's got it done in 3 years.
That's right.
So it's not just the economy.
Well, but it kind of it flows together, Dan. When
Some of it does, but I mean, moving
African
moving
Americans,
the
teenagers,
moving
women,
the embassy to Jerusalem, all these building lots of things he's done that we've been promised to have done, but no one's done anything but say, "Hey, vote for me. I'll get it done for you," and then never gets it done.
And to me, as an attorney, one of the most important lines he said last night is 187 federal conservative judges have replaced 187 liberal judges.
Yep.
Yes. And we may get another conservative judge on the Supreme Court.
I think so.
Well, I'm not wishing anything bad for Justice Ginsburg.
Doesn't have to necessarily be her. It could be another one who decides that their time to leave is time to go now.
True. But well, if that happens, it could be as many as 4 or 5.
Wouldn't that be great?
But also this country was built upon balance more than anything else. So I really would not like to see a Supreme Court that's like 7 conservatives and 2 liberals.
Well,
be honest.
Here comes to me. That's because you got an attorney side on you, which is, attorneys, especially from Wisconsin, they're partly frozen. So they got half opinions. We can't trust everything they say.
There's an important election coming up in February to get a conservative Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin. So we're hoping that.
So the state of Wisconsin has Supreme Court judges?
Well, we got something going for us.
Wait a minute! I thought all they had was a football team all this time.
What football team? They didn't go to play.
I know. Hey,
Except the last quarter.
I lived across the ditch from Wisconsin and Michigan, so we knew what you guys. You guys used to ship over all your bad weather to us.
We have to give it to somebody.
340-1590. 340-1590.
It'd be better than sending it down here to Florida.
You know what? We get enough of it. It's this below 75 and 80 degree stuff I don't like.
Call FEMA. Wow.
It's just not good. Well, hey, listen, we're all going to float away soon anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. 340-1590, 340-1590. But I think the word Dan used, which is the monster word, is patriot. Patriot. Now, how do you prove your patriotism? Do what's right for the people of this country, period. And I mean, whether it's the military, whether it's blacks, whether it's whites, whether it's purples or greens, or whether it's women, children, whatever is the right thing to do for the people in this country makes you a patriot.
That includes building a wall, keeping out the illegal aliens as well as the drugs.
Well, I love this last night. There was a whole group that were definitely in favor of giving everything to the illegals. Because I know people, and you do, we all do, that cannot afford health insurance right now. But if you come in as an illegal, you're given health insurance. You're giving all the best health care there is. And it's just the system is a bit broken. The wall, when it's finished, and Trump has done magnificent things getting Mexico to work with us to house and keep some of these people trying to get into the country. Behind the scenes stuff that's going on, like one of our callers said, he didn't tout everything he's accomplished because he'd still be on there if he was. And that's just one of the things. So, hey, happiness was being a conservative last night. again, if I was a bit of a liberal today, I think I'd want to take the day off. With pay, of course.
They always want the pay.
That's it. 340-1590, 340-1590.
Joe, the most wonderful thing about being an American is being an American. And I think what the Democratic Party is forgetting is our founding principles. They're not being taught in the schools anymore, and we had that background. We appreciated what Ben Franklin did, what George Washington did, what Thomas Jefferson did, but the children today are not being taught the real meaning of what our founding fathers were trying to do for us.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, in many cases, they are taught that many of the things that our founding fathers did were evil, that they were wrong, that they should not have been tolerated. The problem is that was the law of the land at the time. So
Basically, he's going to slavery.
you can't go back and say, based on today's morals,
Yeah.
we want to judge people 200-300 years in the past. But that's what they're being taught.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
Well, it's like, if they change the law, like if they change a law where they reduce a sentence for a crime, you can't go back retroactively and release all those people that were sentenced 20 years ago to life.
Yeah, you can in California.
Well, is California the example you want to use? I'd prefer using a state like Michigan or Wisconsin where people really have a heart. You talked about heart earlier, Joe. That's the important thing. Do you have a heart? Do you have a place in your heart for the Lord? That's even more important.
Absolutely.
340-1590, 340-1590. So now I'm getting upset with you, Alan.
That's fine. You've done that for 4 years, and I haven't missed a beat.
You know why I'm upset with you?
Why?
Because you're leaving for 3 weeks on a cruise, and I'm not going. You didn't invite me.
He said
Well,
it was a vacation.
Joe, you have a responsibility to keep educating our wonderful audience, and you do it so well with Dan and Victoria and Greg and Mike that
You know what? You're not on
Reach
good.
over there and rub his nose.
You know, normally when he's on good drugs, he's not this bright. You know, but today you're pretty glib.
He's on
Well,
the money.
You're on the money.
I'm not going to be with you for 3 weeks, but I do know the phone number. You might get a surprise call.
You know what? Though I could be doing a radio shows from the boat as long as you were paying
I
for
was going to
this cruise. I
suggest
could
that,
do that.
you know, but if you're not on the boat, I assure you that we'll be talking about you a lot.
Hey, by the way, this is interesting. Tom, why don't you tell what Holland America is doing to protect people from the coronavirus?
Well, they've initiated a program where anybody who has been to China is not allowed to be on the boat.
Period.
And those individuals who come onto the boat.
Now,
are
is
gonna
it
be
China
checked out.
forever or just in the last couple months?
Well, the last at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
At least 2 weeks, and so they're through, I guess, medical histories and examinations. They will check to see that nobody has a cold coming on or has a temperature. And they'll check the history to see if they did indeed go to China or someplace else, exposing themselves to the
So they're
virus.
gonna at the beginning when people are coming onto the boat, they're going to be screening them.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Isn't that how diseases used to get spread by the people in the shipping industry who were taking their spices and goods from country to country,
Yeah.
bringing their diseases with them?
Well, that's how a lot of diseases have spread throughout this hemisphere.
What did we do to the American Indian? You know, we gave them in Central America, South America. You know, American white guys brought us over diseases, which, you know, it's only right.
I make a comment of an experiment that was done by the head of pathology. He put glitter on his hand, and every student who came into the class that day, he shook hands with every one.
Right.
he got a call from the dean later in the day. Is how come I got all this glitter stuff on my hands? That's how the virus spread so quickly.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And that was the thing forever and ever. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, because people transmit even to themselves. Rub your nose with your finger.
Into your
rub your
mucus eyes.
Eyes, yeah. 340-50. So Holland, America, 3 weeks?
Yes, we are going the Eastern Caribbean. It's a crazy route. We are leaving Fort Lauderdale next Wednesday, and then the ship 11 days later, after the Eastern Caribbean, comes back to Fort Lauderdale to disembark passengers who are only going for 11 days and pick up passengers who are going for 10 or 23 days. And then the ship goes to the Southern Caribbean, and on March 4th, we'll be coming back to Fort Lauderdale. So,
well, listen, when you get to Bonaire, jump in the water for me and check out the coral reefs and give me a report.
I'll just mention your name, and either there'll be great cheers, or I won't mention what happened.
Yes. How come I understand that?
Yes.
If you're in the water, who knows? They might turn the sharks loose with you there.
Listen, I have swam with sharks before, and a couple of times I was not happy. I'm not one of those people that they show on TV feeding sharks. I was looking at one that wanted to eat me, and I had to talk him out of it, which was interesting.
Didn't happen to be a lawyer, was it?
Listen, luckily I told him I was not an attorney, so he forgave me, But,
I see.
They have professional courtesy to lawyers, I'll have you know.
Professional
so don't say
courtesy,
that.
right? 3-4, that's his son's an attorney.
I wish there was something called political courtesy in these
courtesy.
days, like there used to be.
340.
Well, we may get back to that. Things go in a big circle, and the things that used to be when we were younger that are no longer around, I think society will get better. You watch and see.
And guess what? We have another caller. Hey, Ricky, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Hi, Joe. Hi, everybody. How you doing? I love your show.
Thank you.
Okay, I got a question about annuities. I'm getting ready to buy one. I haven't talked to anybody yet, but I have $250,000 I received in inheritance.
Okay.
It's so confusing. What should I buy?
Well, first
How
of
you
all,
define an annuity? I have no idea at all, sir.
let me
Thank you
just,
for your help.
I hate to tell you, Ricky, you happen to be talking to a financial advisor. You ever hear of such a thing?
Oh my God, they're all over the place.
I know,
Mr. Martek.
but I happen to be resembling one because that's who I am. I've got multiple licenses, but what I try to do, and I've done on the radio quite a few times, is educate people on the different types of annuities. So the concept, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a phone number right now, which is my office. You call that, make an appointment, you and I will meet, and I will educate you so that you, when you decide to make a decision, you'll make the best one. Does that sound right?
Thank you guys so much. I love your show, and I'm just really excited. So I will call. I'll wait for your number, and then I'll call it, sir. Thank you for everything. I love your show.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks,
going to
Rick.
give you that number right now. You got a pencil handy?
Yes, sir, Mr. Martek.
Okay, it's
Mr. Martin.
I know. Careful now. Careful. I'm getting respect here. Listen, Ricky. First of all, I want you to know I'm older than you, so I've earned your respect just by age. Okay, this is I'm in Palm City. It's 678-7725.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to seeing you. And in fact, what I'm going to do on next week's show when Alan's not here is talk about different types of annuities again as an education process, which I've done every so often because there's misconceptions. And what Ricky was doing, and I didn't even pay him to call in and ask that question, which I normally would, but because there are misconceptions.
And you know what, Joe, an annuity, it's not always the best thing.
No,
Depending
no.
on your age or what you want
Yep.
to accomplish with that money. So you really need to have make an informed decision
There you go.
as to what's the best utilization. Because $250,000 in your hand at one time,
Right.
that's a lot of money for most people.
Joe, I was in your business for 25 years.
I know.
And I had misconceptions
I know.
about annuities. So even somebody in the business cannot understand fully all the ramifications, but you do a beautiful job of educating people, and you don't push them.
No.
You allow them to make the decision, and that's why I respect you so much.
Well informed.
Well, you know, the whole object is this, and what we've done with these shows for 15 years now, or 16 or 14, whatever it is, long time, since 2004, is educate, whether it's insurance from Dan Warren, or it's mortgages from Mike Paulus, real estate from Victoria Lloyd, attorney stuff, meaning wills and trusts and power of attorneys, and healthcare surrogates from Greg Fasula, and Joe Martek, financial advisors. Are you telling we should leave?
Well,
Not yet.
you'll need to close.
I mean, the clothes?
Yeah.
I'm wearing clothes.
Oh,
Say bye.
never mind.
Jay, wait, hurry up, say it.
What I respect about Mr. Trump is that he has a backbone, not a wishbone.
You've
Amen.
been listening to
Backbone,
the Team
not a
Martek Hour.
wishbone. Way
the
to
Team
go.
Martek Hour
What a
is
great
a
way
paid
to close the
program.
show.
The content
Should we
was
say
provided
goodbye?
by the
Say goodbye.
advertiser.
Adios, guys.
WPSL, its staff, management,
Already
and
off.
ownership.